Hey, what's up guys, this is Vesper. I've been playing Sakura for a few days now, and I figured I'd make a guide now and teach you guys what I've learned so far. And there's a lot I want to talk about, so I'm going to break this down into, I think, 3 parts. In this video, we're going to go over her best normal attacks, as well as her command normals and her best anti-airs. And if you guys don't already know, we already made a couple combo guides on Sakura. You can check them out. I'll post them up right on the video right now if you guys want to go straight into the combos. But for now, we're just going to go into the basics. Alright, so let's dive right into this. Let's start with Sakura's best normal attacks. Let's start with her crouching light punch. This is really important. So this is Sakura's fastest normal attack. It starts up in 3 frames. You'll be using this a lot, especially when you're in a pinch and when your opponent is really close to you. It also converts into a lot of damage from just other lights, because you can easily chain it and convert it from there. Another thing is you'll be getting a counter hit a lot, since you'll be using a lot of crouching light punch when up close. So let me turn the counter hit on. It links into her medium, her standing medium punch from a counter hit, which then converts into a lot more damage. So make sure you're efficient with that as well. When your opponent is blocking, it leaves you really close too. So for example, if I use a standing light punch, you'll notice I'm outside throw range. But when I use a crouching light punch, all of a sudden I am in throw range. And this is really important when you want to shimmy the opponent, for example, and you want to be as close and as threatening as possible. Okay, next up we have Sakura's standing light kick. I would say this is the best normal attack she has. And I would even say that this is the best standing light kick in the entire game. It's just that damn good. For many different reasons. For example, first off, the range is absolutely insane. Second off, you can actually convert from this max range into damage, into a knockdown. It starts up in 4 frames, which is ridiculous. It's really fast. And it has a really big buffer window, which means that I can buffer into specials and punish on the opponent's mistakes. So this is a great neutral tool. So let me go in a little bit more detail on all these points I just made. So first off, the range. So one thing to know as a Sakura player is that this has more range than her crouching medium kick. So I'll show you an example here. So I'm just outside of range of her crouching medium kick, but then boom, standing light kick is in range. Really important to know. So when you're playing footsies, when you're in neutral with Sakura, you're using her standing light kick constantly. Always hit checking, making sure the opponent's not dashing in, right, and poking them with it, because you want to abuse the range and the speed. Okay, the second thing is that since this starts up in 4 frames, this is used to punish a lot of things in the game that can't normally be punished. When the opponent sweeps you, for example, you want to punish it with a standing light kick and convert it into a damage, rather than just sweeping back. Another thing is that there's so many things that are like -4 or more in this game. Like Balrog's light rush punch, you can easily punish it with her standing light kick. Nash's medium kick sonic scythe, things that normally like would be kind of safe are not safe against Sakura. It almost seems like she can punish everything. Ken's standing hard kick, anything that's -4 or more is basically very weak against Sakura, because she can punish so many things, and it's something as a Sakura player you need to be aware of in your matchups. Now the third most important thing is the big buffer window. So the big buffer window allows me to basically input a DP in between before it recovers, and it'll only come out when I know it's going to hit. So I'll show the key display here. I'll show you guys an example of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press standing light kick, and then I'm going to input a medium uppercut before the standing light kick is done. So it's going to be like 1-2. So I'll show you how fast it is. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, like that. Now it's only going to come out if it hits the opponent or if they block. Okay, so how you want to use it is you're going to use it outside of their range, just outside of their range, like this. You're going to be walking back and forth and just constantly buffering it like this. And if they happen to stick out a poke, they happen to dash in on you, they happen to walk into your range, it's going to hit them, and then it's going to convert right into the DP. You don't have to worry about them blocking, because you're not doing it right on them, right? They have to basically be vulnerable. They have to press a normal attack, they won't be blocking. If they're dashing or walking into you, they obviously won't be blocking. So you'll abuse this a lot, and you'll be landing a lot because of that. Alright, moving on to Sakura's standing medium punch. This is her fastest medium attack. It starts up in 5 frames, but you'll notice that the range is abysmal. It's super short range, and this is one of the ways you can convert with 2 hits from a medium. Basically, you can go into a medium kick, right, into a hard DP for a bigger damage, or I like to go into standing light kick personally, because sometimes you're going to get a counter hit, or you're going to hit him just outside of range, and you need that extra range to convert into something. Also, you want to bully your opponent too, because this is +2 on block. So what I like to do personally is, after I get in close either from a cross up or a dash in, I'll kind of hit them with a medium punch and walk forward and slowly bully them with it. And then I'll either throw, right, or I'll shimmy with it, or I'll just fish for a counter hit, and then if it lands, then I can just simply convert it. Now Sakura's crouching medium kick. This is your low medium. This is not the best crouching medium kick in general, but it does have a big buffer window, just like her standing leg kick does, except instead of a medium DP, you're going to want to use a hard version. So this is kind of the same thing. If you see your opponent dashing in on you a lot, you want to fish with it outside your opponent's range, and if it lands, then you convert right into a hard version of a DP, which gives you better Oki in general. Okay, so the hard strength attack I want to mention is Sakura's standing hard kick. As long as you use this at max range, it's relatively safe. It's -4 on block. I use this quite a bit actually in my matches. It's not the best, it's a little on the slow side, but it is your main crush counter that you'll be getting most of the time, and it can convert into a full dashing combo, which is nice. Even if you hit it at the absolute max range, you should be able to land a standing light punch. You can play it safe and just dash forward and do a standing light kick if you're just think that it's not going to land for whatever reason. If they stuck out on normal and you happen to crush counter them from extra far, you'll always get something from it, so it is worth mentioning. Now for jumping normal attacks, let's talk about Sakura's two main cross-up attacks. She has a cross-up light kick, and she's got a cross-up medium kick. So the difference between these two, by looking at the hitboxes, they both have the exact same width. Okay, so one is not wider than the other. The difference is that her jumping light kick has a bigger vertical hitbox, right? So it's taller. So in other words, you can hit this earlier and hit the opponent. So sometimes, obviously, if your opponent's crouching when you cross them up, right, your medium kick will whiff, for example. So in that case, you want to use light kick. If you're just jumping at your opponent in a scramble, I would prefer jumping light kick because of that. But if you're, you have a knockdown, you're going for a well-timed cross-up, then use medium kick, because obviously it does more damage, has more hit stun, right? So that is the difference between the two. Okay, let's talk about Sakura's command normals now. Let's start with her forward medium kick. So this is Sakura's overhead attack. This is used for hitting crouching opponents, they're being too defensive, or you need to close out the round. You'll notice the range on this is really good. And this is like the same range as like Alex's forward medium punch chop, so that's really nice. And this is -7 on block. And most overhead attacks are -6 on block. It's a little bit more punishing, but there's a reason for that, because of the range. Obviously, it'll be hard for the opponents to punish it at -6. And another thing is that this is +1 on hit, which means that if you get a counter hit with this, whether from a setup or if they're pressing something, you can convert into a crouching light punch. So you can get a little bit of damage off of it, basically. So that's good to know. Okay, next command normal, her back hard punch. This is actually her fastest heavy attack. It starts up in 7 frames, so keep that in mind if you need to punish something 7 frames or more. It's also combo filler from her standing medium punch, so you can go medium to heavy with her, get some good damage from that. And otherwise, it's a decent anti-air, but I'll be covering that later. One last thing is that I do use this a lot as a shimmy tool because it's your fastest heavy normal, and I usually go into a light tatsu from it or an EX tatsu because both options are -2 on block. Okay, finally we have Sakura's down forward heavy kick, her chin buster. So, I know this looks like an anti-air attack, but I don't recommend it. It's a little on the slow side, and she's got better anti-air options anyways. What this is primarily used for is a media attack. So what do I mean by media attack? This is something you would use when you knock down your opponent and you're standing right next to them and you're sticking this out as they're getting up because they're forced to block it. So one of the reasons for this is it's active for 3 frames, which is really good. It means you can eyeball it. You don't really need a setup. You can just use it as they're getting up. Another thing is that this is +2 on block. So if they block this, you are still at an advantage, and you can stick a medium attack right after, and they're forced to block that as well. If they don't, since you're +2, you're going to get a counter hit, and that will lead to even bigger damage. So it'll look like something like this. And then they're right back in the same situation, and you stick this out again. If they choose to try to attack you as they're getting up, it's going to be the exact same thing. So let me show you here. You sweep them, you stick it out, hits them, and it converts right back into the same kind of thing. So really good after knocking down your opponent. Okay, let's talk about Sakura's best anti-air attacks. the absolute best anti-air attack she has is her crouching hard punch. This is the most reliable in terms of hitboxes. She's got a giant vertical hitbox above her hand, and she'll never trade with it as long as you time it right. So let me show you guys an example of that. Let me have Ryu use this jumping hard punch. So make sure you're using it early and you're hitting with the tip of it. So the only problem with this, of course, is that it doesn't stop cross-up attacks, but it has a pretty good wide range. Okay, the next anti-air attack is her back hard punch. So even though this starts up in 7 frames, which you think would be fast, the problem is this doesn't become an anti-air attack until the last active frame. So it's a little slower than you think it is. She doesn't actually anti-air the opponent to her hands or completely above her head. Now, the good thing about this is that the angle that it covers is a little bit better for stopping cross-ups than her crouching hard punch. Because you're crouching hard punch, you are in fact crouching, right? But this, it kind of swings and it can kind of swat them if your opponent's trying to cross you up. Another benefit about it is that if you land a counter hit, of course you'll get a crush counter, and if you're anti-airing with it, you do land crush counters quite often, and that can convert into a lot of nasty damage as well. So that's pretty much it in terms of normal anti-air attacks that I would just use for Sakura, but also she has 2 special moves that you should consider as well. First off is her light version of her DP is really reliable, has invincibility frames at the top part of it, so it'll beat out all the attacks, and it's fast. It starts up in 4 frames. This is something you're going to want to use in a pinch, which is really important because sometimes you're just not going to have the amount of time to stick out a slow, heavy normal like Crouching Fierce or back hard punch. You're going to want to use the light DP, so don't forget about it. Finally, the last reliable anti-air option I should mention is, of course, her air fireball. Once you get into the pattern of zoning and conditioning your opponent, you're going to want to throw these out every now and then, especially the charge version, even though Sakura does look upwards and it is a tell for the opponent, but you'll be landing these every now and then. And also, of course, the reward is quite high, and your opponent might always be worrying about it if you show them at least once. You'll get like a hard punch DP. It's really easy to convert from that, which is great for an anti-air. So you always want to mix it up. So yeah guys, let's wrap up this video. Hopefully this wasn't too long. I know we're going over the basics, but in our next part, we're going to go over her move list, her special moves, and her V system. And then we're going to cover more of her gameplay and basically your game plan and goals on how to play her. So look forward to that, guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because of course we'll be covering a lot of AE stuff, guides, and news for a bunch of characters. And of course I got the patch notes to work on. Please like the video too, guys. It really helps out. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.